Ooh.
Thank you for listening to Los Championship Rounds. Today's guest is Ron Cruz, professional boxer, 20 fights, 8 years as a pro boxer. And thank you, Ron, for joining Los Championship Rounds today. I'm excited to have you on. I just want to start off with, well, how's your day going, first of all? What's going
What's
on with
going
you?
on, Juan? Thank you for having me, man. My day's going good. Just training like usual. It's Sunday, so it's a day to go run at the beach and just kick it with my dog the rest of the day.
Good, good, good. So, you know what, Ron, I want to, and I'll give a little disclaimer. Ron and I have been working for the past 8 years. I'm his cut man. But I wanted to have him on the show because he has an interesting story. Not only is he a professional boxer, he's a trainer, but he also has a career as a nurse. So we'll touch a little bit more into that as we move into the interview. But Ron, how did you get started in combat sports? How old were you when you first began this sport or combat
Well,
sports?
yeah, it's a funny story. I really got into combat sports as a discipline thing. My mom wanted to make sure that I was getting that structure in my life. So she decided to put me into karate at first when I was a kid. I think I was about 5, 6 years old around there. And around that time, I enjoyed it, but I just did it because my mom was making me go, and she made me start. So that's really how I got my start in everything. I started with some taekwondo, some kicks, some punches. I learned the basics, and little by little, it just developed into something that I really ended up falling in love with, and it was really my outlet as a youngster.
How old were you when you began in the sport in combat sports?
Well, I think I was about 5 years old. 5 years old when I got into Taekwondo. I started and I really liked it. And from there I really trained from 5 until I was about 12 or 13, I think 14 maybe. I took 2 years off where I did some tackle football in high school. And then I realized that combat sports is really my niche. I didn't really enjoy the whole the team aspect of football, and kind of hated it actually. I hated the fact that I had to depend on other people to get any kind of recognition. So then I decided that my sophomore year was my last year playing tackle football, and I would return to combat sports. And I ended up making my way back to Muay Thai. And I found a gym that I really loved, and the rest is history, man. I just started. I think I was about 16 when I went back, and then I'm 30 now. So we've just been going, grinding, grinding.
So Muay Thai was kind of where you pretty much fell in love with the a one-on-one sport. Yeah. So what was it about Muay Thai that got you so like into it? What was it?
Well, I always tell the story that when I was a kid, I think this is right before I started playing the tackle football. I was a kid, and my mom was taking me to a few different schools, and we ended up at this school, Victory in North Hollywood, and it was a ninjutsu school. So these guys used to use like swords, and they would practice with nunchucks, et cetera, et cetera. Even though I was a kid, I still wanted to know that if I was learning something, that I would really be able to defend myself. So I remember going into this, right? And I'm being a little smart ass as a 13-year-old, asking the coach all kinds of questions like, why do you guys do this? How am I going to do that? Like, if I get jumped in an alley, where am I going to pull out the nunchucks from? Like trying to get a gist of
Yeah.
like what you're trying to teach me. And he ends up giving me some garbage, like some garbage responses. And I was like, you know what? This isn't it. Long story short, my mom takes me to this Muay Thai gym. It's the first Muay Thai gym in America. It's called Muay Thai Academy, right? So I get there as a kid, and I remember walking. I'll never forget the moment I walked in there. I walk in, and it reeked of sweat. It was just like it reeked of sweat, ass, feet, all of the above. But
Yeah.
what I remember hearing is coming in, and you could hear these guys just like shirtless, sweaty dudes just kicking the bags. Like you could hear the kicks like resonating through the gym, and I remember just being like in awe of this and thinking like, man, this is real. Like if I'm gonna fight, I want to know how to use those weapons. I want to be able to fight like these guys are fighting, and I became obsessed with it ever since then. And that was really my start in Muay Thai right there. And the moment I came back after I played football, as soon as I came back into Muay Thai, I was obsessed with fighting. It had just become something that I wanted to that became my ultimate goal in life, is just to be a professional fighter. I wasn't sure what it would do or what it would entail, but I felt like that was my dream. Since I was about 15, I decided like that's the one thing I could say that I would do, and I wouldn't feel like I'm working.
Yes, yes. And you had a pretty good amateur Muay Thai career. Tell us a little bit about that. When did you first start, and where did that amateur career take you? Because you've been to some of the biggest Muay Thai events. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's funny because as we're talking now, you've been my Cutmen for a long time, and I went from Muay Thai to boxing, but Muay Thai was really like I tell people, I joke around. I said it's my long lost love, right? It's the love you never forget about, because I remember being in that sport, and I was just blessed to get really good opportunities, and I would say I was gifted. I was gifted in the way that I could fight Muay Thai. It's something that I really loved. I really studied. I really immersed myself into, and I was lucky enough to fight at some venues. I fought at the Hard Rock in Vegas. I fought at the Forum. My record was actually 18-3-1, I think was my record as an amateur. So I had about 22 amateur fights. I had a few smokers, the underground fights, and I really loved it, man. But then it just, I ended up switching out from Muay Thai to boxing because I realized boxing was more of a lucrative sport. It was
Yes.
something that would be able to provide not only myself but my family a living, and something that could actually support you. But Muay Thai was definitely a beautiful art. It's something that without it I wouldn't be where I am today. I learned a lot of lessons in that combat sport. Took some lumps, some bruises, all that good stuff.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that's what we're in it for.
Now I hear you. And so you jump from in 2014, you take the leap to become a professional boxer.
Yes.
As you mentioned, there was, you saw maybe in Muay Thai, the financials were probably not as good as, as in boxing, the opportunities. Uh, Once you get into the boxing as a professional boxer, what goes through your mind? Because it's a whole different, I mean, it's still a different beast. I mean, different politics, different routes. Take us back to your first pro boxing fight. What was running through your mind?
You know what, man? It's funny because I tell people all the time that I just don't I don't know how to explain. Okay, yeah, well I do. I just don't want to sound cocky, but in my
Yeah.
mind, I don't I don't see how something that I really want to accomplish can't come to fruition, right? So I never thought of I always knew that no matter what path I took in combat sports, that I would be able to achieve whatever I really wanted to achieve. I think it really had to do with my desire. So when I was switching over to boxing, I never really second guessed myself. I never questioned myself if I had the abilities or if I would be able to get away with this or that. All I know is that we're going to put on gloves and we're going to fight, and a fight's a fight. So once we're in
Yes.
there, I mean, once I hit you in the mouth, we're going to find out what you're made of. Once you crack me, you're going to see what I'm made of, and then we're going to find out. But of course, as the sport long and as my career started to develop, I started realizing that there's so many levels to boxing.
Yes.
Boxing isn't just a fight; it's a technical battle. Mental, physical, spiritual, all that stuff. So it was a really eye opening experience. That's for sure.
And like you said, there's levels. There's a process to it. I know you fought a lot of. I mean, you started off your four rounders. I know you had a lot of fights in Tijuana, a lot of fights out in North Dakota. So it is a process. I mean, you've been to pretty much all types of venues, whether you're warming up in the back of a bar to being in a nice green room. Tell us a little bit about those experiences and how they have molded you into the boxer you are today.
You know what? I really love fighting and boxing and all combat sports because I feel like it translates bigger than the sport itself, right? I think these are lessons that we take from boxing itself, and we get to transition them over to our lives. So I really enjoyed the journey because it's been really hard. For me, boxing has been really hard. It's something where I'm trying to do I'm trying to do what guys that have 100 or 200 amateur fights, and I have
Yeah.
one. As a boxer, I only had one boxing amateur. These guys are guys that have like tried to go to the Olympics or they've been to the Olympics. The guys that I'm trying to fight right now are guys that have done it all in boxing. They've been there 150 times, 200 times. I've never been there. So for me, the road was a lot harder. I had
Yes.
to take the hard way up in boxing. So I've had to, most of my experiences come as a professional.
Yeah.
And I fought like you mentioned. We've been in some bars and rinky dinky bars. We've been in some nice venues. We've been taken care of. We've had some hard fights. We've had some good fights. But the lessons you get out of every fight is just it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I appreciate the opportunity to chase my dream every chance that I get to go out there and chase it. So besides all the stuff, like some fights are harder than others. Some camps are harder than others. Some venues are shittier than others, right? But in the end, it's all about that journey. It's all about all those little, those stumbles, those hard times. I think those times are the most, the things you'll remember the most in the end.
Yes, yes. And one thing I notice about you is that you are who you are. I mean, you don't you don't have two different personas as far as, the fans are seeing Ron Cruz, so I see that connection when we've been out in venues, how the fans really connect with you. Uh, that I know that's an important thing for you, but how did you get to that point where, where you understood that how, the fans play such a big role in a boxer's career?
Well, you know what? Honestly, it's just I like to be myself. I like to be honest. I like to be really open about things. And me, sometimes I share a little too much of myself with people. And I might not know them, but it's I really like to make people feel welcome.
Yes.
And if you've made the effort to come out and watch me fight and you're here, I feel like I should reciprocate the effort as a fighter. You came out and you supported me. The least I could do is come and say hi, hang out. You know what I'm saying? Spend a couple minutes, take some pictures, meet your kids. Like I feel like that's the least that I could do as far as being a fighter. And it's really, to me, it's an enjoyable thing for people to recognize what you do, right? We dedicate our lives to this sport. I mean, I've spent the majority of my life fighting, right? Trying to get to these points, and you couldn't get to these points without your fans. If
Exactly.
you don't sell tickets, you can't get here. And you're someone that knows that. You've been on some of the biggest stages yourself. So it's the people that really make the fighter, right? And I think that giving people a little bit of time and an ear or a couple minutes, I
Yeah.
think that's the least that I could do as a fighter.
Yeah, no, no, no. I definitely agree, and I see it. I mean, the fans really connect with you, so that's a big. I think sometimes professionals or anybody in this entertainment bit, because it is entertainment. At the end of the day, we're in the entertainment
Yeah,
business. It doesn't take a lot to make somebody's day, like you said, take a picture, things like that. I mean, it's great, and I see that in you, and that's a great how can I say it? It's just good on your part, that you do that. A lot of
appreciate
people
that.
may not know this, but I mean, you're a nurse, by profession.
Yeah,
So taking a leap, I mean, you do well, in that profession, you do well, but your goal and your dream is to become champion of the world. I'm sure that's what your goal is. So how does one transition into the other, and tell us a little bit more about that, because I know a little bit of that story from you being a nurse, but I mean, to turn it on from being compassionate, having empathy for your patients, for the people you work with, the people you care for. How do you turn that switch to become El Diablo in the ring, where you're just, you go out there and you're vicious, you have a goal, and the goal is to get through that opponent so that you can get to the next level. Tell us about that, Ron.
yeah. So it's being a nurse is something I think that's naturally in me. I really care for people. I think I have empathy for a lot of people, and I really enjoy helping. If I can help somebody in any way, it's a really big deal for me. So if I can go out and I can do, if I'm getting paid to help people, I love it, man. I used to love being a nurse, and it was something that it was kind of scary to leave nursing for boxing because it was a big leap. It was something where I was like, man, you don't want to leave that security. You don't want to leave
Yes.
that paycheck that you're getting every week. But I realized that part of the dream and part of the journey is taking those leaps of faith, right? Where you're afraid, where you're nervous, and I think you've heard it said before. If you want to take over the island, you got to burn the ships. You got to burn
That's
the ships
right.
when you get there, right? So we kind of got to that point and we said, hey, we're gonna do it. But as far as switching over from nursing to El Diablo is a nickname that I got from a few friends of mine that knew me. It's I love fighting. I love fighting overall. And for me, I take it a little personal. If you sign that dotted line, it's personal for me because you're saying that you can beat my ass. And for me, that's something that's like, okay, I respect that and you're entitled to your opinion, but we're gonna find out if you can beat my ass, right? So for me, that switch on is just a matter of hearing that bell click on and the first punch is being thrown. and I let that other side of me take over, right? You could say. And then once he takes over, I just let him have some fun.
And I love that. I love that about you. And I think we were with Virgil was stating at the last fight that it's not a nice business. We're not in the nice business. This is the hurt business. So
Right.
coming from Virgil, being a multi-time champion, I mean, it's just it's true. We're in the hurt business, and after the fight's over, like you said, you can be friends and all that. Maybe you can help them heal up a little bit. But when those rounds are going, you're gonna whoop some ass. So yeah, no,
That's right.
growing up
That's right.
or when you started your boxing career, were there any boxers that you were a big fan of that you're like, what, that's somebody that I respect, or that that were maybe role models, somebody that you're like aspired to be like? Any boxers out there?
Yeah, yeah. So it's funny because this is back in the day, right? I don't know if
Yeah.
all my young viewers are gonna relate to this, but I don't know if you remember MySpace.
Yes.
So I remember having a MySpace and running across these Roy Jones Jr. videos, and this is when I was about 16. I used to do Muay Thai, right? So I used to watch this guy put his hands down and beat people up, and I was like, damn, like that's really cool. Like I wish I could do stuff like that, right? So it was that was probably one of the fighters that I really loved to emulate and watch. And I thought he was so unorthodox, and I thought it was ridiculous that he could get away with some of the things he got away with. So
Yes.
he's a fighter that I really looked up to when I was a lot younger. He's somebody that I love to watch. I also enjoyed funny is Ricardo Mayorga was another
Yes.
fighter that when I was young, he was I aspired in a sense to be able to accomplish what he accomplished, even though he was as crazy as he was and he had all these vices, he was still able to accomplish such great things. And I thought, man, if this guy can do it like that, what can I do if I do it right? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it was something where I was like, those two guys, Roy Jones for his style and craziness, Mayorga for like, damn, he did it, even though he was out there smoking and drinking, going up to the fights, and he still became a world champion. That blew my mind. So those are two guys that made
Definitely.
a very big impression on me when I was young.
No, 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 no. And that's good. I mean, that's good that you bring that up because I'm sure Mallorca didn't have an easy road, to get to that world title, and to become world champion is no easy, no easy task. So you got to give people respect to getting to that, ultimate goal of that championship. If you
100%.
if you could go back and say, what, I would have liked to have shared the ring with this boxer. I would have liked to get in there and combat, and no way disrespect, that the them, but somebody that you would have said, we would have had a good fight. Is there anybody that comes to mind?
Out of all the fighters, it's funny because I think I've always wanted to fight Canelo. I think he's one of the greatest fighters alive right now, pound for pound. And I think that's somebody that I think all of us as fighters aspire to measure ourselves against the best, right? You have
Yes.
to measure yourself against the echelon, right? The top echelon of the sport, so you can see where you fall. And I think that would be a great fight just to find out what it's about. That's the top 1%. That's as 1% as you can get right there.
That's the test, like you said, as a competitor. You want to
It's
see where
for
you're at, right? I mean,
exactly
yeah, it's not about the financials. Like some people be calling out people just because, but if you're in this because you want to be the best, and to be the best, that's a very select group that make it to that level. You have to test yourself, you know.
100%.
So
Yeah,
that's
I've always told everybody that that's my dream. All I want to do is find out if I can accomplish the things I believe I can accomplish. I want to see if I'm as good as I think I am. And the only way to find that out is to fight the best.
That's right. No, no, I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. What does 2022 have in store for you? What are your goals for this year? I mean, we just started the year, but I know that we've talked and we have or you have some goals. So tell us a little about what's going to happen or what you hope will happen in 2022 for Ron Cruz.
What I hope and know deep down in my soul is that this is the year we get on TV. We're gonna get a big fight this year. I've gotten a couple calls for some top 10 guys. So I know that this is the year that we're going to get that right opportunity that we've been waiting for and looking for. I'm just healing up from my last camp. I had a little injury, so set me back a little bit. But right now we're hitting the ground running, and I'm excited to see what offers fall on our plate. You know.
No. That's good, and that's a great way to look at it because the year's young, and there's a lot of, like you said, the calls are coming. You're top 20 in the U.S., one of the best fighters in the world. So I'm sure those calls, will continue to come, and you'll get there. You'll get there. That's no doubt about that.
Thank you, Juan. We're gonna get there, baby.
Yes, yes. And if you had three fights this year out of those top 10, 154 pounders, who would be your number one, two, and three for the year?
Of course, Charlo, because he's a world title contender. Or he's not a contender, excuse me. He's a champ, right?
Yes.
Charlo has the belts, and he's one. Brian Castano would be the other because he has the other belt.
Mhm.
And then someone else I've been looking at for a bit in my weight class is Fandora. He's somebody that I like because I think he's an awkward fight. He's tall, he's long, he's young. I think that would be a great test, a great way to test myself to see if I'm ready for the big dogs. So
Yes.
that's a fight that I'm looking forward to make happen this year, and I think it's going to happen this year.
Good, good, good. No, those are good. Yeah, those are good quality. Well, you got a champion and then quality opponents in the other two. So no, that's great. Any I know family's important to you. I've worked with you. What keeps you focused, for these goals and for for I mean your number one goal is to become champion, but what keeps you that energy, that fire in you to continue?
I always try to remind myself why I started the journey I started, right? Before it became about belts, before it became about money, before it became about fame or fighting number one contenders, it was all about the dream, about loving fighting and about getting an opportunity to do something that you love. So for me, some days I feel down or some days I feel like, God damn, like I don't want to get up. I'm not trying to go run 10 miles right now. I'm not trying to eat chicken for the 15th time this week. I remind myself like, hey, you know what? We sacrificed pretty much our whole life to get to this point. And it would be quite a waste to just let it all slip away just because we're kind of tired, just because we don't want to get up.
Correct.
So every day I remind myself, like, we're so close. I tell myself, you're close, champ. Just keep going. Just keep
Absolutely.
going. One foot in front of the other. We just got to keep going, man, till we get to that big opportunity and we find out what we're made of.
Yes, yes. No. That's right. You got to keep pushing yourself because a lot of times I think we create our own roadblocks, our own mental blocks that prevent us from getting to the next level. From getting. So no. Those are totally great points you bring up. Any shout outs, sponsors that you want to shout out?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
got I got a few. I got a few. Let me see. First of all, I'd love to shout out my coach, my main man, Edgar Ponce at A1A Boxing. He's helped me hold it down from the jump. I couldn't be where I am right now without Edgar. Edgar's a staple in my camp. He's somebody that I would die for. He's a great man. He's a great coach, father figure for me. He's someone I really love. A1A Boxing, where I train out of. That's my jam. I love to give a shout out to Papa Juan's and Hanzo Sushi, owned by a good friend of mine, a good longtime sponsor as well. He's somebody who's been a part of the team for a while now. Another sponsor I'd love to shout out is Friends and Family Automotive. They're out in Canoga Park. Another great group of people that take care of me. And last but not least, I'd love to give a shout out to Cutman for Hire, man, because you're
Thank
the
you,
man.
man.
I really appreciate you, Juan, and it's been a great journey. It's been a great, pleasant journey with you. You're an awesome man. You're an awesome cut man, husband, father, all of the above, and it's great to have you as a friend.
No, thank you, Ron. And this likewise. I mean, I got, and this is your interview, but thank you for that. You get to a point where you can pick and choose who you work with, and I love working with you. You become family. We are family. We're at that point where if you needed something, I'm there for you, and I think we're at that level, man. It's just it's great. It's a great feeling. Um, we're almost done with the interview, but any where can people find you social media, Instagram? Where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, if you two ways to find me. Hashtag Ron Cruz. You'll find me all over social media, or you can look me up on Instagram, Ronald_Cruz_. Real simple, real basic. So you'll find me there. Easy money.
And if you could give a youngster, that 13-year-old, that 12, 13, 14-year-old that's starting off, their career, maybe they're training Muay Thai, boxing, if you can give them any tips, what would you tell them?
I think the biggest tip that I could give anybody, and that's something that I'm always going to tell all these youngsters, is don't give up and just keep going. Decide what you want and just go for it. You're always going to have people that are trying to, even out of love, people are going to try to guide you a different way than what you're dreaming of, because usually dreams sound crazy.
Yeah.
But I think you got to go for it. I never thought I'd be training with Mike Tyson. I never thought I'd be getting paid hundreds of dollars to go spar these world champions. And then here you are, you're getting calls to like live your dream. And if I would have listened to all the people that told me I couldn't do it, I wouldn't be here. So I got to tell the youngsters, just keep going, baby. You believe in it and ride it out till the wheels fall off, baby.
That's right. That's right. No, you're right. I mean, people sometimes try to discourage. They don't see the dream, but you can't. You got to keep moving forward and live your dream. It's your dream, not theirs. So you got to do that.
That's
You know what?
right.
We're gonna end up. I have something called. Let me get this Get this out here. It's called 12 rounds in 60 seconds. So basically, it's 12 questions. Just blast them off. You just give me the first answer that comes to your mind. All right, just
all right, let's do it.
let's
All
have
right.
fun with this. All right, let's
Get
have
me
fun.
nervous. All right,
No,
get it. Okay.
Okay, here we go. All right. Favorite fight movie?
Southpaw.
Tacos or burritos?
Oh, breakfast or lunch? Let's go. Tacos.
Dream car. Any dream cars? Bentley. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. WBC, IBF, WBA, or WBO?
Oh, come on, Juan. The WBC, baby. That's what we gotta go with.
All right. Guilty pleasure. Something that you do just,
Guilty pleasure is McDonald's. My all-time love, McDonald's.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie is Zoolander with Ben Stiller.
Dog or cat?
Dog.
Arena you would
dog.
like to perform in?
My dream arena is the MGM Grand. Always wanted to perform there for whatever reason.
Favorite music?
Favorite music, hip hop, or Ariana Grande.
Best walkout song?
Ooh, best walkout song. Russ flute song.
If you could step into the ring with anybody, past or present, who would it be?
Canelo.
All right, Ron. That was it. 12 rounds in 60 seconds.
Ooh, man. Answers. Had me nervous.
No. We try to keep it, PG here.
I thought you were going to embarrass my boxing IQ.
No,
anything.
Not at all.
Oh, man.
No, I just want to thank you for being on those championship rounds. This is episode 2, and it was just a pleasure having you on and just getting to see, where you began your career, where you've been, and where you're going. You have a bright future. Stay motivated. And any last words before we end the interview today, Ron?
Just want to thank you so much for having me, Juan, and God willing, we make it to that world championship real soon here. But thank you for having me, Juan. It was awesome. Can't wait for the next one.
And I want to thank our listeners for listening to Los Championship Rounds, and stay tuned for the next one. Thank you, Ron. Have a good one.
Yes, sir. Thank you, everybody.